Welcome back to the Make a Baby podcast. I'm Carolina Sotomayor and your womb healer and podcast host. I am so excited because when I was looking for podcast guests for 2026, I said, I want women who are serving women. I want witchy women or witches themselves. I want women who are maybe midwives but are serving in the fertility or motherhood space. And I found the most perfect human. So Eileen March, thank you so much for being here. And I usually want to ask is where are you in the world? And give us a little bit of background of who you serve and what you're about, because I'm super enchanted by you. And I'm sure the rest of our listeners will be too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I love when you reached out to connect and ask if I'd be on your podcast. It was an immediate yes for me, despite not knowing you either. So I feel like it was fate for us to both be here. I am in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So I'm just about 45 minutes east of the Rocky Mountains up here in Canada.
Okay.
And so it's actually not that cold today. It was cold yesterday, but we get these warm winds coming off the mountains. So it warmed up overnight and we've got quite warm weather
Are you
now.
in Celsius or Fahrenheit?
Celsius.
How
So,
many Celsius degrees is it?
well, today it's actually +3, so just above freezing. And yesterday morning, I think this happened yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, it was
Okay.
-22.
Well, that is quite the difference.
It's a big difference.
Yeah,
People who get
no,
people who get migraines do not like living in Calgary. I'm thankfully not one of them.
I'm obsessed with Canadians. You guys are always like I've had quite a few Canadian clients and they are one word I like to say is cheerful.
Hmm.
They're very, like, eager and kind-hearted and just, like, literally, like, a person you would always want in your life, like, just good, amazing humans.
Hmm. Oh, thank you. We are
And
known for being nice. Some of us maybe to a fault, but it's a
I
nation
live
of
in
niceness.
Nebraska, and they call it Nebraska nice. It's a Midwestern thing here in the
Yeah.
States. Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. To answer the second part of your question too, I know it's always so interesting how geography, it really does impact us, which is actually a perfect thing to kind of plant the seed of when we start talking about my work later.
Yeah.
But the people I serve today, so as you mentioned, I was a midwife. I am no longer a practicing midwife. I left the profession 4 years ago now. Ooh, yeah. Wow. And when I left, it was not because I didn't love the work still, but I hit a wall of burnout that was definitely hurried along by the pandemic and all of the restrictions that happened and all of the ways that I used to refuel got torn away from me. And I knew when I was leaving or as I was kind of nearing the end of that career that I still wanted to be in service and of service to women specifically or folks who identify as female in this lifetime. I just didn't know how. And it was kind of kismet that actually a couple of different courses kind of came across my path in that last year of me practicing as a midwife. One was a life coaching course through the Center for Applied Neuroscience, and I'd never even heard of a life coach at that point. But something about it, I had a friend taking the course and she was writing these really insightful blog posts. And I was like, what are you learning over there? It sounds really helpful. And I thought I might just take it as a self help course at the time. And around the same time, I also started working with a retired midwife who was an energy healer and a coach and a witchy woo woman. I didn't really believe in energy healing. I just knew that I really wanted to be in her presence and like to sit at her feet and learn from her as an elder. And so when she said she was holding a year-long wild medicine energy healers program, I jumped into that. And so the two kind of combined partway through each of those programs. They were happening simultaneously for me to go, I think I could do this. And it takes so much of what I did as a midwife that I loved, which was to help women come home into their bodies, to help them feel like they could trust themselves, to help them feel like they could advocate for themselves. And when they couldn't, I could advocate for them. And it took that out of the realm of birth, but into the realm of the larger life that we're living. And so most of the women I serve are kind of between 35 and 55 and just realizing that they've lived a lot of their lives for other people and they're ready to stop doing that and connect and come back home to themselves.
Okay. So as a spiritual person, looking and hearing and listening to that, do you feel like there was a spiritual awakening in there? Like, the pandemic did that for a lot of people, but with your midwifery being restricted and then you being told, like, what you can and cannot do, more restrictive than maybe before, do you feel like that was a death, like a pivotal point? And you're like, because what I have found in my experience is, even in my own lived experience, my father's death, literal death, caused me to pivot, live differently, ask
Mm.
why, very aligned with what you're saying. But I found in other people, sometimes it is a firing, a job loss, a pet loss. There is a big life event that has caused them to seek, like, some of the things that you're talking about and have things show up in their life that are their next chapter.
Yeah, I feel like there is some of that. It wasn't like a hard, like, I can't pinpoint the moment, but it was becoming harder and harder for me to be on call. The way that midwifery works in Canada is that you have teams of up to 4. I was on a team of 2, and you're on call for large chunks of time. So I'd be on call for 7 days and then off for 6, and then I'd do a day of clinic, and then I would go into my week on call again. And I was really starting to dread those times on call. My body was starting to react or respond. I have not had my phone on since I left because I don't have to. I don't have to answer that phone anytime it rings day or night. And so it was getting to this point where I was feeling really bitter and resentful. If you know anything about human design, I'm a projector.
What kind? Stop. I am a projector too.
Oh, nice. It's amazing how we find each other. I'm a splenic projector.
I'm a self-projected. What profile are you?
Sick.
I'm a 5'1". Okay.
Ooh, fun.
I'm a self-projected projector. I love this. So I totally get, like, the if you're a projector in human design, that means bitter is your emotion when you're out of alignment. That
Mhm.
really means, like, you better take action and pivot and get out of this situation or make changes, because I did you so you were saying your body was, like, having reactions. What happening in your body?
It was like, I mean, it still happens every now and then, especially as a journey through entrepreneurship, which, as you will know, it's not an easy
Is
journey
it
to
with
take.
launching? Do you have, like,
With
nerves with launching?
It's not even that, it's just the ups and the downs, and I
That's
left a
true.
very
Yeah.
lucrative career to start from scratch.
Yeah, no, I
And all
totally
that
get
goes
it.
along with that. But over the past several years, as I've been in this new line of work, every now and then I just touch in, especially when my leave of absence that I took it was coming to an end, and I had to decide whether I was going back or not. And I'll check in with my body and think about, okay, what does it feel like if my phone rang right now and it was a midwifery client and I had to answer it and I had to do something about whatever was on the other end of that line. And I feel nauseous. My whole body feels ill. Like, it's the hardest no. So that even though I love birth, I love clinic, I love baby, I loved all the aspects of the job, but it was that on-call demand and not knowing how long you were going to be away, when you might sleep next, if you'll get to sleep more than a few hours. That side of it was really hard. And the working in hospitals was hard. I worked at home and hospital. That's the way it works here. We have privileges to admit to hospital when needed. Home births were a lot less taxing on me
I bet.
than hospital births. But yeah, so there was that sense. Back then, I didn't know what a projector was. I didn't know that bitterness was a sign of being out of alignment. I just knew that I had to find a different way because I wasn't coping anymore. And I didn't want to bring that energy into the birth room.
I
It felt
bet.
terrible.
Also the exertion. So, like, for anyone that
Mhm.
knows human design, projectors are not meant to have such large outputs because we don't have, a lot of defined energy centers.
Mhm.
So, for you to be on call for 7 days and have so much exertion, that is like the literal there's like a personal hell for a projector. You need so much rest as a projector.
Mhm.
So tell us about how you did those 2 programs. What did you get from them? So where are you now? Where did they lead you? Tell me. I You got me hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
What happened
So,
next?
well, I wrapped up my life coaching program and the practicum portion of that at the end of August 2022.
Yeah.
And That's when I wrapped up my on-call portion of being a midwife. I worked the hospital shifts, which we had until the end of 2022, but I stopped being on call for my team. I was done at the end of August, and I jumped 2 feet straight into trying to be a life coach. And I didn't have a
Yeah.
niche. I didn't really know what kind of a life coach I was. I just knew I was drawn to talking about rest right off the bat,
Uh-huh.
burnout, hustle culture, healing from that, why it's so hard for women especially to rest and tend to themselves. And so that was kind of my where I was headed. I was still wrapping up the energy healers training program that didn't end until the end of 2022. And to make a long story short, it wasn't until 2023. Was it only 2023? Must have been. No, maybe it was 2024. I don't know. I can't remember right now. Anyways, it was a while later that I started to really lean into the more kind of spiritual woo side of things. As I mentioned, when I first started that energy healers training program, I didn't even believe in energy healing. I didn't think it was a thing. And I remember very distinctly the first time I did a healing as part of that training, sitting there being like, I'm making shit up in my head. Like, this is all, this
Were
is,
you the practitioner or were you the recipient?
yeah. No, I was the practitioner. I was being guided through the process by my
So wait,
mentor.
you went into a certification program, you weren't sure if you believed in it or not, and then you were giving a session and you were still not sure if it was real or not? Wow, this is a perspective that I've never heard before. Keep going.
Yeah. So I was sitting, it was COVID. So it was all online. So I'm sitting in my room
Okay, 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 okay.
delivering this energy healing, following the prompts, like it dropped into a visualization, following the prompts from
Mhm.
my mentor and wrapped it up. And before she had me share what I had found, saw, seen, experienced, she had the receiver describe what she'd felt. And as she started to describe what's going on for her, my jaw hit the floor because she was describing exactly what I'd been seeing, what I'd been feeling, what I'd been doing. And so there that was like this big crack opened up in my curiosity and my ability to say, okay, I think there's more here. And then of course, the further I got into it and the more start reading about meta-analyses that have shown that distance Reiki is effective and there's quantum physics and all of this
Oh, yes.
neuroscientific evidence piling up. I'm like, okay, now great. Now my science brain has that reassurance, but I don't actually need it anymore as I
Yes.
move further into that. And so it went from there to I was holding Wheel of the Year ceremonies. That was the first kind of dip into the more spiritual woo side of my practice or witchy side of my practice. And so I started to hold those as the first kind of offering that I even had.
Do
I
you?
went, my followers, I was like, would you be surprised if I started calling myself a witch? And I gave 3 options. One was, "You don't already?" The other was like, "No, it's obvious." And the other one was like, "Yes, I'd be totally surprised." And I think one person answered the third one, and the rest were all like, Do you not already call yourself a witch?" So the answer was clear, and then, of course, midwives are the original witches. They were the healers, the birth tenders, the birth keepers have been persecuted as witches for as long as there's been, which is as a negative connotation in our society. And so I really leaned into that exploration. And over the last few years, I've gone deeper and deeper into my Celtic heritage and roots, my Irish and Scottish history and roots and learning. And I'm really pulled towards that. So much of the work I offer now is really anchored in and rooted in Celtic mythology and seasons and learning and ways of being in the world.
I love that so much. I did an ancestry DNA test, and my dad was from Ecuador, and my mom is just Caucasian, and we never knew truthfully where her lineage was from. And it turns out I'm 42% Scottish, and I've been learning myself, educating slowly. But I have also felt the call to, I'm very curious because the other part is indigenous to Ecuador and Peru.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's easier to find information on the Scottish part, but not so much on the indigenous, Peruvian and Ecuadorian part. So I love that you're going to the roots and, like, what is in your lineage. It's so powerful.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's felt like ever since I was a little girl and I didn't have the language for it then, but there was this sense of a calling from that part of my heritage. I know my family tree. The majority of my relatives, my ancestors came over from Scotland and Ireland. And I've loved Celtic music since I was a little girl. My dad was born in Nova Scotia in Canada, so that Celtic heritage was there. And the family and the connection to that land. I went to Scotland during my first degree when I was studying to be a midwife. I was on an exchange in England and I went up to Scotland for a few days and had this sensation that, again, at the time I didn't have the words for, but it was like my bones remembered. And when I went to Ireland for the first time a couple of years back, I did have the language and I stepped out of that plane and I went, this is home, in a way that the place that I was born and raised, which is just
Was
west
it?
of here in the mountains, has never felt that way. And since learning more about the work that I do now, the land, my lineage, even when I go back to Canmore, which is where I was born, there's a sense of like, you don't belong here. This is stolen land. I'm a colonizer on this land, and the land doesn't want us there in the way that I felt welcomed by the land in Ireland.
Have you ever considered moving?
I have, yeah. I think my partner's actually lived there before. He's also from here, from Calgary, but he's lived over in Ireland a few times for work and traveling around, and it's definitely not off the list of places we might explore trying to move to. Obviously, changing countries is a whole undertaking in and of
It's
itself,
quite
but
the undertaking. No, it's on
yeah.
my to-do list. I am renewing my passport, so that's step 1.
Yeah.
And, no, but that is, like, on my like, living like, first was living in Ecuador was my first pick, and then probably
Mm,
2 is Spain, but I have on Scotland to go in the next 2 years. It's on my bucket list,
nice.
because I've never been to Europe, and
Hmm.
I've been to Ecuador quite a few times, been through the Caribbean, Mexico, but I've never been to Scotland or Spain, which is I also have ties there. So
Yeah.
tell us, okay, if you could tell a woman who is living life but frustrated and bitter and they're just knowing that what they're doing, they can't do anymore, but they're not sure what they're feeling and they're feeling stuck. But there's just a knowing. I find this a lot is
Mm.
there's just a knowing of like what they're doing is not in alignment, but they're not sure what is their alignment yet. How would you guide them, or what are some things that you, with your wisdom, could help them if they're feeling that way and listening to this pod?
I think the first thing that I always offer is to slow things down so that you can hear, so that you can
Mm,
listen. I think so often you've got these, we wear our masks, we fill our roles, we're busy. We're all so busy, busy, busy all the time that it's really hard to listen in and hear what's beneath the noise. So that knowing like there's something else, this isn't working, gets loud. But then the confusion of, but what is that? And the mind gets busy and it's like, well, you have to pick something that's like appropriate, or you have to make enough money, or you have to be seen as respectable, or whatever it is that the story, the narrative that gets in the way of hearing the wisdom that's underneath. So getting quiet and getting still, and it doesn't have to be, it's not realistic to be like, go meditate for an hour a day. No, we don't have time for that. But do you have time to step outside for 5 minutes in the morning and put your feet in the grass if it's warm enough? Or if it's not, even just standing at a window and gazing at a tree or the sky, some part of nature, and just breathing and slowing down and listening for what's there beneath the noise. Our subconscious mind and or our guides, however you want to see them, whether you believe in spirit guides or not, our subconscious mind is powerful. And so following, like letting it speak. The shower is a great place for it to speak. Driving is another great way for it to speak. And if you have those kind of fanciful thoughts or ideas that bubble up, don't ignore them and don't dismiss them. Doesn't mean you have to act on anything, but just getting curious. What lights you up? What makes you feel good? If you don't know, can you remember a time when you did feel good? What were you doing? What were you engaged in? And letting that kind of curiosity lead you towards experimentation with what might feel better now.
I
Mhm.
love that. I think quite often we're so conditioned and ingrained and groomed to rush and hustle. The pause, it sounds so It almost sounds too simple,
Mhm.
but it's just simple as that, is the pause, is the most critical thing in I think actually in spirituality is the pause. Pause before you speak, pause before you make a decision, a pause to reflect. The pause is really what is needed so that your nervous system, your mind, body, spirit can all like collect
Mhm.
before you know what you're feeling, before you can make the decision, before just so you can take a breath. And it's so underrated because we feel and we're conditioned that we have to do all
Do
the
something.
time.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? No, just like literally take a pause.
They literally
Wait,
do nothing. It's the
that's not gonna do
hardest
anything.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I've come out as a witch over the past year. I'm still a baby witch. And a lot of people are scared of that word. I've also
Mhm.
done a lot of work around anchoring myself into what I consider my self identity and being secure and falling in love with what I am doing and how I'm living and how I'm structuring my life and boundaries and defining what is important to me and what my values are. A lot of inner work, a lot of like valuable work. And as I have networked in different circles in my very Bible Belt Midwestern city,
Mhm.
it scares people. Do you mean you
Mhm.
worship demons? What do you mean you're a witch? What do you mean you're a womb healer? You're doing Satan's work. Quite the opposite. I
Mhm.
guarantee you, if you knew anything about demonology, the guy who wrote those books, you would definitely think is literally the first demon that ever existed.
Mhm.
So for me is I've lost people because I do Reiki. I'm 5 times certified in different lineages. Been doing it for over 7 years. Definitely it's not going away. Definitely have every certification I've gotten, every level of Reiki, my mediumship has increased. I've gotten more comfortable with my skill. I have, just like you had shared, I received a lot of evidential lived experience of like,
Mhm.
there is something to this. This is real. I can't see it. I can't see gravity either, but that's real.
Mhm.
How have as a witch, how have you evolved and become more comfortable with that? Basically, I'm asking is like, do you find yourself educating people around you when you reveal that you're a witch? More like in person. Online, it's much easier to be accepted, in my opinion,
Mhm.
than in-person circles because it's such an odd answer still, like, "Hi, I'm a lawyer. Hi, I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm a midwife. Now I'm a witch." So,
Mhm.
can you speak on your witch evolution, or can I say witchhood?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's I am lucky that I don't come from a very religious family. My dad's side of the family is still somewhat religious, and actually the only, like, full-on negative reaction I've had to the term and using it was from his sister, who didn't say anything, but I could tell she was probably in fear for my immortal soul.
Yeah, I was told I
But
was going straight to hell. I lost a best friend of
yeah.
17 years. It's
Oh
like,
my
"It's
gosh.
okay." I know it was devastating at the time, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
totally relate.
And for me, it's a matter of just sharing, the idea of witches as evil was created by men who wanted to wrest the control of the lands, the commons, from the people. And in order to take and the men of the church and the rulership, they wanted to take control and ownership of lands and property and production that had been held in common forever. And to do so, they needed to destabilize the existing social networks. And guess who were the heart and the hubs of those social networks, the communities? They were the healers, the midwives, the wise women, the women with knowledge of herbs and of childbirth and of how to help people come together. And so they demonized them. They created fear. They sowed, just like we're seeing in so many places of the world, othering people to create fear, to pit neighbors against each other, to create instability. And in swoops the patriarch to take care of everyone and protect them. And I've got this, don't worry. We'll just burn them. So it's not an inherently evil term, but then we've had this passed down through the centuries of this demonization of women as witches. We've got it reproduced in Hollywood, in all of our stereotypes. All that the word witch means is wise woman, just like the word midwife means with woman. That's with woman or with women. That's what that word means. And so for me, taking this word back has been like a reclaiming of some of what my ancestry is, of my lineage. My grandma was a healer. She was a nurse. I was a midwife. I know that I've had witches in my lineage in my past. Scotland, as you mentioned, your history there, they executed 2 out of 3 people who were accused of witchcraft were executed in Scotland, which was more than anywhere else in Europe. It was thousands of women. 80% of the people executed were women and accused. And so for me, anyone who kind of gets their back up at the word, I will say what I just said to you quite passionately. I don't feel like it was a hard rule for me to say, oh, I'm going to step into this, because it felt like a knowing, again, like that bone deep remembering. It's about community tending. It's about healing. It's about helping. It's about sharing wisdom. It's about all of the connecting with nature and the cycles, and remembering that I belong to the land as much to other beings. And if you can't get on board with that, then we really don't have anything to say to each other.
I know. My goodness. That's my preach, sing it from the rooftop. We really don't have anything to say to each other. That is exactly it. If like, that is it. If you are not, everything you just said was so amazing and is everything in my soul that I stand for. Like my hair is standing up, like in such a good way of like, if you are not in service of others, if you're not in service of the land, if you're not in contribution, in betterment for your brother, but with love, with kindness, with hearts, what are we doing? We can't have the same
Hmm.
conversation.
Hmm.
So that is it. I also have found that, you mentioned something I can resonate with, because I know that exact feeling you're talking about, was I can feel it in my bones. Some people have never had that that feeling. They've never had a bone chilling or a bone resonating experience. And those are often the people who've never questioned their faith. They have an unquestioned faith is quite dangerous. And so whenever I work in my circles, I said the most powerful thing that you can do is be curious and ask
Hmm.
why.
Hmm.
And I didn't start to ask why until I gave birth to my son. It was actually during my pregnancy. I'll talk about something very controversial. I worked in a vaccine manufacturing plant at the time. I used to be in quality assurance for pharmaceutical manufacturing. And I asked about the vaccination schedule. And I was comparing it to, I'm 42, and I'm comparing to like the number of vaccines. And I started to read about vaccines, and I knew how they were manufactured, and just asking why. No one come for me. I'm fully vaccinated. I got my flu shot a couple weeks ago. My son is fully vaccinated. Don't come for me. We believe in science too. But I wanted to know, like, and I started to read that I am anti-vax at all, but I wanted to know why. And I wanted to know,
Yeah.
why do all of these have to be done this way? Why do they have to be done so much? Why do they have to have combinations? And I remember that was like such a hard that ruffled so many feathers, but
Hmm.
it was so powerful, because it was the first time really taking a stand in my marriage. My husband's very easygoing, but that was up to that point. We had like, normal stuff, but like he was like, this is a deal breaker. I was like, no, I just need you to be patient. I need to have the conversation, but why aren't you questioning it? And I think it's
Hmm.
when for me was, without my pregnancy, without my son, 100% would not be here and be the person that was like my second awakening of like, I need to ask why. And I got
Hmm.
empowered to ask why, because it was the first time that I was in charge of somebody else. Like I had a controlling
Yeah.
father. And as a mother, it was like, oh, wait, they're going to do what I say in the delivery room. They're going to do what I say in the pediatrician's office. I get to decide what kind of diapers he has. I get to decide if he's going to have the $600 or $800 organic cotton mattress that he's never going to sleep on. He didn't. He slept on my boob.
Yeah.
So and breastfeed for 4 years. Like, in my experience, asking why and getting curious can make people really uncomfortable. It is
Mhm.
the key to the changes that will be revealed to you in real time, and it's not all at once, but it's the answers that you need right now and the
Mhm.
potential changes that you need to implement or the alignments that you are seeking by starting to ask why and starting to be curious. And that is what a lot of patriarchal people don't want you to do. So, by painting women as witches or Mary Magdalene as a slut, that is all conditioning to keep us small and compliant and
Mhm.
obedient and not remembering we are powerful. We do
Mhm.
have choices. Your wisdom, all of us are psychic, but your womanly wisdom of like, you just know we all have it
Mhm.
is so worthwhile pursuing because it is the thing that I would bet money on every single
Mhm.
time. Tell me what you think we should do. Tell me what you feel. Tell me where in your body, where do you feel that? And I will
Mhm.
bet money on that, even if it was a stranger, because that is where it's going to lead us in the darkness. That's where we will find the light.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so true. It is there's so much within us that we have
So
shut
much.
down or like practiced not listening to or not hearing or not heeding. And we're told over and over again, it's this dichotomy that we have in society, mind over matter, the prizing of rational thought over emotional intelligence or understanding or awareness, intuitive knowing has been looked down on for so long as again part of that control. If we divorce people from their bodies and we divorce them from their intuition, they're much easier to control.
Say it again.
If we divorce people from their bodies and we divorce them from their intuition, then they're easier to control, especially women, because that's where so much of our wisdom lies is in our bodies.
I have always felt our souls reside in our wombs. How do you feel
Mm.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of the womb is like the creative flame space. So it is there's that essence, that life essence that is there. I don't know if I feel like a soul resides in any one specific part of
Or
the
just
body
entirely? Yeah.
or just entirely. To me, I don't often use the language soul. I think more in terms of like the energy body and that
Ooh,
essence of ourselves that is entirely within us, but also accessible from anywhere. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna have to sit with that one a little bit more.
yeah. For me is when I was on my Reiki journey and I was practicing in person, I'd seen this pattern that everything went back to the womb. Like,
Hmm.
I noticed, like, patterns of whether, women were wealthy and had the most supportive parents and unproblematic, uneventful childhoods, they were still not living from they still felt unworthy. Or
Hmm.
maybe there was a father wound and again, they felt unworthy to take up space or they felt unsafe to take up space. So for
Hmm.
me, it was safety, worthiness, longing. All of those three were like the core wounds that
Hmm.
often were found but went back to the womb. Every chakra was important, but I noticed this like heaviness that I would feel when I was working on women. And
Hmm.
eventually I got called the womb healer. And it is actually Reiki that helped me conceive my 9-year-old. I have loved my womb studies because, they call it the mystery school or there's just so
Hmm.
many things. But for me, is like the womb is this like the ocean. It's this vast, there's so much to learn and every womb is so different and so much wisdom to be obtained. So I always encourage women to connect to their wombs
Yeah.
through meditation or looking at your yoni, do some steaming, look in the mirror, put your hands on your womb, talk to her,
Hmm.
listen, collect your blood, give it back
Hmm.
to the earth. I love collecting my blood and giving it to my rose bush.
Hmm.
I recently just started doing that over the past probably 6 months. A magical practice of reciprocity. So
Hmm.
I love that so much. It has changed how I feel about blood in my womb, and I think it's beautiful. I'm like, I get excited to bleed. I call it my
Yeah.
sacred bleed, and I get excited because then I know I'm gonna get all of these psychic downloads. It's my receiving time when I'm bleeding. I'm like, "Okay, I get the next month's abundance codes. We're going to lock
Yeah.
in."
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a powerful time for sure. I think it's something, again, same thing when I'm doing energy work. I'm not Reiki trained, but it's very, I think the
Very
same but
similar.
different. Yeah, very similar. And that is always a space that feels like it needs tending to for women, certainly. And it is that again, relationship with that space that so many women, it's annoying or it's like really painful. And so they dread that time, or it's
Right.
just like a hassle. It's messy. It's a nuisance. And we've inherited that from a culture that's told us it's shameful. You have to hide it. It
Or
is
it's
a hassle.
dirty.
It's dirty. It's a nuisance. Don't tell anybody you're bleeding. Oh my God, what if somebody found out you had your period? That would be so embarrassing. Like all of this shame around it, around something that used to be a huge celebration. And so it's, yeah, another piece of my journey too is coming into living more cyclically. Like I call myself a cyclical living guide. And that started with just the seasons and how much we can learn from living with the seasons. But of course, there's so many cycles, and one of them is our own. For those of us who are in bodies that cycle and bleed, is that womb cycle, and being able to notice the way that it shifts your energy or way of thinking or emotions, all of that shifts and changes through the cycle. And it's so beautiful when we can embrace it and ride it and not push and force ourselves to try to be in that androgen cycle of 24-hour reset that our whole society is built around. And it allowed me to also get excited and embrace those days where I am bleeding. And I get to kind of go into that sacred, magical space that for so long was just a nuisance and dirty and shameful. And it's a really cool way to connect with our bodies and their power.
No more shame.
No more shame.
No more shame. I forgot to ask you, so how do you serve women? So talk to me about your practice and like how do you serve the world? I think we skipped over that part. You told us at the beginning, but how you arrived there. But tell us like how do you serve women, about your programs? How can women work with you?
I have a few kind of primary avenues. One of them is one on one. So I support women one on one in 6-month containers that includes energy healing work and coaching work. I usually call it spiritual intuitive coaching, but one on one with me supporting you, voice note support in between, and access to all of my Wheel of the Year ceremonies, any kind of other paid master classes or anything that it's like an all access pass to me pretty much. So that's one of the ways I work with women. Anyone who's curious about energy healing work, I do one-offs of those as well. But my two kind of focuses right now are my year-long Wise Wild Woman mentorship program, which is a mentorship container for women who are seeking that something more, right? That connection to self, to cyclical living, to healing that witch wound and the sister wound, and moving through the cycles and the seasons. We rest together, we write together, we learn together, and we integrate together. And
And
I,
integration is so important.
yeah, it's something that's missing from so many programs that I've seen.
Preach. I know integration is such overlooked and it's probably the most critical part after the healing. Like it is the most because that is what
Mhm.
like sticks and grounds you and allows your subconscious to and your womb to combine and for you to launch forward.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of just like, okay, let's learn the next thing. And you're always
Yeah.
learning. And then that program also includes, and also you can arrive separately at my kind of flagship, my very first program that I ever ran. And it's getting an upgrade this year, but it's called Unleash Your Inner Witch. And it's a beginner's guide to witchcraft for the woo curious. And it is going to be a 3-month program. It's been a 6-week program, but the next time I run it, it will be 3 months long with space for integration in there and just a little bit more of a deep dive. And that is I love running that class. I've had people come who are already full blown identified as witches, and I've had people who come in and are like, I don't think I want to call myself a witch. And it's like you never have to, but it's that foundational understanding of a different way of moving in the world.
I love that so much. Do you do is this all online or do you do in-person things too?
My ceremonies, my Wheel of the Year ceremonies, which you can also just attend one of those are open to the public. They are hybrid. So if you're in Calgary, you can come to them in person, but I have a lot of people who come online from all over North America.
I
And
love
then
that.
everything else is online.
Perfect. If a woman who was listening wanted to embrace her embrace her womb, and knows that she has witches in her lineage, but still scared, what is one piece of advice that you would give her?
Go slow. Let yourself be right, but you don't have to talk about it or share it with others. Just get curious, let yourself connect with that, and know that it never has to become a title you ever claim out loud. It's not a performance. It's a knowing, right? It doesn't need to be shared or spoken about to be true. Yeah. Let it be gentle and let yourself be right.
I love that. If people are curious and want to work with you, where can they find you on the World Wide Web?
Either on Instagram is my social media platform there that I hang out at, and my handle is I am Eileen March. And then my website is myluminouslife.ca. And you can take my fun little quiz, which witch are you? And find out which kind of witch you'd be if you were indeed a witch. And that's a great way to get onto my mailing list and connect with me that way. It's always me answering emails. So if you're ever reaching out, I'm the person behind the the screen.
I love that. You're a team of one. I love
Mhm.
that so much. Thank you so much for being here. I've had the best time talking to you, and I know so many people are going to love this episode. And for you listeners, thank you so much for welcoming in the new year with us here at the Make a Baby podcast. I am so excited to announce we have a free community on the school platform, and it's called the Make a Baby community, where we're going to be having workshops and free circles monthly on, I believe, the full moon. Those are all set up for the rest of 2020. We welcome you, and we are going to be launching new containers. If you would like to join our wait list for She Receives, this is going to be our new container, allowing you to learn how to receive things abundantly, receive this soul of your baby, and receive all of the wisdom you need within your womb. And we're launching that here in spring of 2026. Until next time, my friends, let the Reiki flow.